beauty and transience and loss at the same time. There's a great haiku master named Kobayashi Isa, and one of his haiku, or cherry blossom haikus, is, "In the cherry blossom shade, there is no such thing as a stranger." And that's what I felt when I came. I thought, boy, that's the way it's felt all weekend. Cherry blossoms or no. I'll say it again. In the cherry blossom shade, there is no such thing as a stranger. And isn't that nice? And I feel that way in this room right now. I really do. And then Basho, the great Japanese poet, said, "From all these trees, in the salads, the soup, everywhere, cherry blossoms fall." Well, I guess not, but. And Isa wrote another one, and he said, "What a strange thing to be alive beneath cherry blossoms." And here we all are again, right? I mean, how strange and how beautiful. Just for this moment, like a bubble, here we are, together, all of us together. It's a beautiful thing and strange. And Ariwana no Narihiri, don't ask me to say it again, wrote, "Ah, if in this world there were no such thing as cherry blossoms, perhaps then in the springtime, our hearts would be at peace. If in this world there were no such thing as cherry blossoms, perhaps then in springtime, our hearts would be at peace. We see the spring, we know how beautiful it is, we're so happy that it comes, and we know how briefly it stays. So it's so important to appreciate it while we have it, In the tale of Genji, he writes, "Oh, that I had sleeves enough to cover the wide sky. No wind should then take flowers that blossom in the spring." Is it true, as they say, that the blossoms of spring are all the more precious because they bloom so briefly? Yes, the cherry trees put this very plainly. None of the glory of blossoms and autumn leaves lasts long in this fleeting world. And that brings me to really what I wanted to talk about, which is gratitude. Because I'm feeling that, and I'm feeling it a lot. I feel it a lot anyway, and frequently in life I have to remind myself to feel it, fake it till I make it, where gratitude is concerned, but it always seems to come back to me. So when I was reading these cherry blossom things, I thought, oh, they're so beautiful, I'm so grateful to see them and to think about them. I'm so grateful for you, I'm so grateful for all of us together, and it's such a short time and it's so precious. So I just wanted to talk about things I'm grateful for. And this could be really a drag, right? But I mean it, and it's really sincere. This is a president's evening. I don't have really beautiful poetic things to say about presidents. I've met a whole bunch of them. I met, what did I meet? I met Reagan, I met both Bushes, I met Ford, I met Clinton a couple of times. My two favorites, Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama, met those. But I did have the signal joy of getting to portray a president on stage. And Lawrence Wright's wonderful play, Camp David, about the Camp David Accords. And I got to play Jimmy Carter, which is a very thrilling and exciting thing to think about until they tell you that he's going to be there on opening night. Okay, so we got lucky, right? Because he and Rosalind came backstage before the performance so that the four of us in the cast could have the experience of saying hello to him and kind of getting over our hysterical nerves, right? And also, one of the actors who played Anwar Sadat and Mr. Sadat's widow was in the audience that night as well. There were all kinds of connections out there. So the Carters came backstage, and they were so gracious, and President Carter came up to the actor who was playing Begin and said, "Oh, I'm so happy to meet you. I have such a fond memory of Begin, and I'm so happy to meet you." And then to the actress who played Rosalind and said, "I'm so happy to meet you. It's wonderful to meet you." And then the actor who played Sadat, "What a pleasure to meet you. I loved Anwar Sadat. We loved each other like brothers." And then he took my hand and he said, "I'm not so sure how I feel about meeting you." And I said, "Hold your fire until after the performance." I said, "I'm not so sure how I feel about meeting you either." But when we finished the evening and they came up on stage, both of them, I mean, no credit to to us. It was a beautiful play that actually really gave he and Rosalind and all of those people their full due after many, many, many years, and acknowledge that incredible accomplishment. The tears were flowing down their face. And he did write me a lovely letter and tell me that he liked it, but the most touching thing was when he went up to Hallie Foote, the actress who played Rosalind, and he took her in his hands with tears streaming down his face and said, "I fell in love with you all over again tonight." And another time when we were all together, we had a breakfast at the Carter Center weekend that they did up in the mountains, and he came in to breakfast to meet people, and we obviously met before when I'd done the show, and he came up to people, and the first thing he'd say to people was, "Good morning. What have you done to save the world today?" And this is a man whose first and last thought is how we can do good, and I just am so proud to have been able to play. The only experience I have, I've met President Obama a couple of times, but the most interesting for me was that we reopened Ford's Theater in Washington, which is a beautiful old theater with a kind of a checkered past. They had sort of restored it, and there was the Lincoln Awards were being given. They were given on the stage at Ford's Theater, and I was there to host the evening. I was MC for the evening, and President and Mrs. Obama were sitting about where you are to me, right there, maybe a little closer actually. And I was reading from a teleprompter, which always makes me nervous because if there's something electronic, something will go wrong. George Lucas was on just before I had to come back on stage to talk about the wonders of technology and how fantastic it was. We had all this great film technology and theater technology and how that was going to make everything better. Then I came out, right, and I had the next thing to introduce, and I'm looking at my monitor, and the crawl begins and it says, "Michelle and I would like to thank you all very much for coming tonight." So anyway, I finally got to tell him that I had his lines. So I did not read his lines, but it was kind of nice to have that happen right after George Lucas had been extolling the virtues of high tech. Give me a script in my hand any day of the week. Anyway, that's my president stuff, okay? I liked all of them when I met them. They were all really nice and they were lovely people and to be introduced to. But one is always in awe of the office, and that sort of stands in front of the person all the time. Now I'll get a little bit back to me and being great, and I was grateful for that. Grateful for meeting them and grateful to have been able to meet people who have such an important influence all over the world and in our lives day to day, and to think about what an extraordinary country we have, and the government that we have, and how it works when it works. And that's something I was very grateful for. So I'm going to go back to very early. Michael, you said I started acting at 10. I actually started acting in my late 60s. I was in a summer stock production in upstate New York in a theater that's now gone, of course, because I've not only closed theaters, they've been torn down after I worked in them. And I sang "You Gotta Have Heart" in production of Damn Yankees, and when I came back to New York, I was very lucky. Another thing I'm grateful for, my first grade teacher happened to be a children's agent. She took me to audition for a play called, this was in 1958, a play called Sunrise in Campobello, which was a play about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So that was really my first connection with presidents. Was I played John Roosevelt, the youngest son of FDR, in that play. And then I was very lucky, I started working in television, Hallmark shows. It was all live TV at that time. Very, very lucky to be a New York kid actor because we got to work on stage, we got to work in front of the camera. It was a small community and a wonderful community and a great place to learn. It's a wonderful apprenticeship to have. I really knew I was an actor when I was doing a play called Member of the Wedding in a theater in Massachusetts. And I was sitting on the floor, on stage, in the second act, and the lights were hitting me a certain way. You all know what that feeling is, right? When the lights are just on you in a certain way, and it's fabulous. Even at 9, it's fabulous. And I was sitting there and I thought, this is what you are. This is what you do. You're an actor. You're an actor. And that was true, and that's why I have no skills today, except that one thing. I've always told people who brought their children up who want to become actors, and they say, do you have any advice? And I say, well, don't have a plan B. Because if you have a plan B, you'll use it. And if you don't have a plan B, you'll have to do what you want. And you'll have to find a way to do it. And the parents, of course, look at me terror-stricken, because like, you mean don't go to business school and don't, have something to fall back on? And I think, well, I can't think of anything worse than just falling back. So I don't have a plan B. And I never did. And it's a good thing, because there's probably not much else that I could actually do. I'm grateful for the learning experience of being a child actor, even the difficult ones. My parents were in the ballet world. They were ballet dancers and then became teachers, rather well-known teachers in New York. And so I was raised, even though I was an actor from a very early age. And James Earl Jones made his debut in that Broadway play as well, same year, a bit older than me, but we made our entrance together. And he was a wonderful man, kind man to work with. When you're a child actor, you remember the people who were nice and the people who were jerks, and he was just a terrific person. But one play I did when I was 10 was a play called Strange Interlude, and I was so sick. I got a terrible, terrible, terrible flu, right? I had like 104 temperature. And, my parents were raised in the ballet, and so they have very high pain thresholds and are used to physical suffering and getting on stage. And this is probably just the worst piece of parenting that my parents ever did. My dad, who is a softie, as most dads are compared to mom, right? Yeah. My dad was like, oh, the kid's having a hard time. He's sick, he's throwing up, he's got 104 fever. They got an understudy. The understudy can go on. My mother said, no, he's going to go to the theater, he's going to do the show, right? So I went, yeah, it's horrifying, right? That's okay. It's okay to feel that way. So I went to the theater, and they had a bucket on stage left, and they had a bucket on stage right. Oh, yes. They've passed away, they'd be in jail now, but they'd have, but there was bucket on stage left, bucket on stage right. I go off, maybe I didn't have to hurl, and I go, sorry, but, and then go back and forth, made it through the performance, feeling strangely and masochistically proud of myself. However, although I would never in a million years, ever inflict that on a child of mine who wanted to go on stage, I am grateful that having had to do it, although there was no excuse or reason why I should have had to do it, there's never been a time since then when I didn't ask myself if I was feeling, could I do this or could I not do that in the theater? Could I take this chance? Could I not take this chance? To ask myself, okay, how bad is this? Is this that bad? Because if this is that bad, don't do it. But if this isn't that bad, maybe you can push through and get it done. And maybe you'll feel pretty much better about it at the other end of it. And I did. So that's a tough learning experience for a child, right? For a child actor. And a harsh thing. But I'm saying this, not because I'm going to get back at my parents when they can't, defend themselves, but to just say that even out of the most challenging and most difficult and most apparently pernicious challenges that you can be subjected to, even as a kid, something you can find within yourself the ability to persevere, and then later on know you can do it, that you really can, that you can manage it, that you can handle it, that the back and your back and the burden are fit together. So that's kind of a bittersweet story, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I got a lot of strength from that. I wish maybe I'd learned it another way, but that gave me a lot of gratitude. Another thing that I'm really, really grateful for about the theater is the idea of the extended family, okay? I had one sibling, my sister and I, and I love nothing more than when it's usually people in the Valley world, when people came to our home and had dinner and laughed, talked, friends. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing. But then what I discovered as a child actor, growing up in the theater, was that every company is a family. Every company of actors who comes together, like cherry blossoms for a brief, beautiful time, creates a family situation. And I've always looked for that family connection my whole life. The ballet company I was in as a child when my parents were dancing, it was a family. And every company that I've ever worked in is a family. Some families are very dysfunctional and some families are very, very happy, right? But that work made me look for family wherever I can. And it's helped me to look not just beyond, it's helped me to look beyond my work to find family in other groups of people and to find family where sometimes there's no commonality. And so it's helped me, it's helped me widen my vision of people and of things that are maybe different from me. And I've never had a family, ever, like the family I have behind me. You know how hard this is when your siblings and your mother and like your first girlfriend from TV is, Marshall Woolery, and you've got your mom, and you've got your siblings, and you've got your spouses, and they're all looking, and thank God my back is to them right now. This is my family. These people, they're my family. And we've been family for almost 50 years. And we became family in the way also, We became family because one of the things that y'all who love the show and who watch the show, there's something you can detect in those shows that makes that show what it is, and it's love. And, as fractious as we could be, there's good days, there's bad days. I mean, you're working 12, 14-hour days, 9 months, out of the year. As complicated as that is, and as demanding, especially on the young actors, as that is, when the love is real, you can't fake it. It comes across on the screen. And I think that what people see when they see that show is how we cared about each other, the authenticity of that feeling. And there wasn't really a lot of places to go to get that at that time on television in America. We were so split in so many ways. Sound familiar? But, there was war, Watergate, and there was all this kind of stuff. And then here was this hour on Thursday nights where you had people of all generations included, who just loved each other. And they could fight and fuss and all that, but they would just love each other in front of them, right? That was probably the most important working experience I've ever had, and certainly the deepest family experience I've ever had in my work. I hope you all are lucky enough to have family feelings in your places of work, or your schools, and places where, where you have a sense of community, like you have here and in a church. But I've never experienced anything like that before or since, and we still stay in touch with each other, and we still love each other, we still give each other a hard time, and we're still family. I just want to talk about, John.